You're watching Asia Now. Malaysia's government says it hopes to offer clarity on its plan to slash petrol subsidies in this Friday's budget announcement. Second Finance Minister Amir Hamzah Azizan spoke to CNA's Melissa Goh, underlying the need to rebuild finances, even as the potential move has sparked political backlash amid rising living costs. Here's an excerpt of the conversation, where the minister began by weighing in on the country's economic outlook, with full-year growth poised to beat the 5% official forecast.
If you look at the government today, it's in its 22nd month of being in power, and because we have stability in government, that's facilitated us to look at what's needed for the country in terms of laying out policy and then giving time to execute that policy. That's one key kernel of what's changed in Malaysia. The second thing is changes that's happening due to geopolitics, because people want to have diversification of their supply chain. So we've seen expansions for the likes of Intel, Infineon, AMD and so on, and they've started to come in, and that's helping boost growth for the future.
Or I will be on RON 95, subsidy rollback. How is progress on that front, and what will govern the government decision when to do it and how to do it?
So I think the team is still working through the mechanisms, but the commitment to consider to do RON is still there. But when you do it, you need to plan it out well, and when you execute it, so you don't at the end of the day have to reverse back decisions. There will be some clarity during the budget, so I'll let the Prime Minister actually announce that.
But do you think the market expectation is absolutely crucial to get it rolling by the end of the year in order to show the government's seriousness in rationalisation?
I think the government has shown its seriousness in terms of when it tackled electricity, it tackled water, it tackled diesel, it tackled even chicken, right? For some strange reason.
Next, isn't it?
Now we'll see how we actually chip off along that line. So there is still fiscal reform required. So I'm convinced that this government will continue to work towards that.
There's time.
There's time. But sometimes you get lucky. If you look at oil prices last year and you look at oil prices this year, oil prices are a lot lower this year. So there's already naturally space that's created along that line. So the space allows us to perfect the system before we even think about pushing it into place.
How big then the subsidy bill is going to be for next year? Is it going to be a lot lower than this year?
If you look at 2 years ago, I think we were hitting somewhere close to 80-something billion for total subsidy bill plus social assistance. This year we'll probably end up in the 60s. Yeah. So next year I'm hopeful with what we've done, we will be well below that number.
Is there concern that the rapid rise of the ringgit, as we've seen in the last quarter, being the top performer in the region, or will it disrupt businesses because of the rapid increase?
I think there will always be winners and losers in everything that you do. But I think if nothing else, Malaysia has shown that we've always been very resilient, and people will adjust and look at ways and means to continue to progress forward. Part of it may be looking at ways to have efficiencies in the system so that they can restore back margin. But there will also be winners who actually are importing foreign. Now they're finding the cost of imports dropping. Past experience has shown resilience in the system.
Are you comfortable with the level of the ringgit right now?
I think the ringgit will find what its right level is, and as long as the economy continues to progress, and as long as the differentiation between the developed markets, interest rates and us continues to narrow, I think there will be a trend that will move to continue to strengthen it. But ultimately what we need to do as a country is make sure our engines are strong.
What about in terms of the SEZ?
The SEZ, I think there is progress in discussions that are going in between the two countries. So we're hopeful by the end of the year we'll get something out.
And that will be another economic generator for both countries, especially for the southern state of Johor, yeah? So if Malaysia is in a good place right now, will next year be even a better place?
The key for us is actually doing what we're doing well today and stepping up the pace. FDI in the country was higher the first 6 months than it was the last year's first 6 months, yeah, by about nearly 20%. I think we're up to 160 billion of approved investments in the first 6 months. So in the past, we used to be at about 70% of all approved gets done. Now the rate of conversion have gone up to close to 77%. So that's a good sign.
If there's one thing that keeps you up at night, what will it be?
Well, I think the reality is it is a very noisy world today. The key for us is actually to build the resilience. We can't change. If geopolitics is going to get noisier, we have to live with it. But if you create the diversification that you need, you create a stronger domestic economy, you build a much better inter-ASEAN trade, then you begin to remove risk in that whole mechanism. And I think Malaysia's chairmanship of ASEAN next year is going to help us also to bring ASEAN together as a force.
And SpaceX